they drew first blood, not me. What's up guys, Dan here, Coalcracker Bushcraft. So why am I making a video about Rambo and his knife and how he ruined survival? Well, the reason is because he sort of did ruin survival, at least a perception of the vast majority of people when it comes to survival and what you should actually be carrying. Okay, so hopefully you've seen the Rambo movies. Now, I'm not doing this because I don't like Rambo. I am a huge Rambo fan from when I was super little. I even had all the Rambo toys. So if you're like an 80s child like myself, you definitely probably had some of the Rambo toys, the bow and the knives, and they had kits with grenades and binoculars, all that good stuff. And that literally carried on throughout my life for a long time, up until now. I even have my child watching, and now he's 9. He watches Rambo. This is his Rambo knife. We actually dulled it because he had it when he was like 4, so he used to run around the house. Probably not a good idea, but he would run around the house with the dull knife pretending he was Rambo, and he was taking on all the bad guys. So this is definitely not a diss on the Rambo movies himself, because he's like an iconic outdoor figure, I think, but the information that people just conclude from these movies about survival is like totally wrong. So we know that Rambo goes into the woods on Rambo 1, okay, with just his knife, running from the police, and he makes do to the point that he lives, survives. He's eaten a pig at one point. He makes fire. He hunts down all the police officers. He gets a deuce-and-a-half truck, everything due basically because of this knife. And Colonel Troutman, all right, his leader in Vietnam, talks to the police about how Rambo can eat stuff that would make a billy goat puke, and he can live in any weather environment and nothing bothers him, and he knows how to survive in caves and all this stuff. And it all comes back and honestly centers back to this. So people see this knife and they're like, if I have a knife, I can live in the woods. And that is the furthest from the truth ever. But why is that? Because myself, growing up, my first thing in all my survival kits was always my knife. I always picked my knife out and laid it down, and then I put everything else around it. And still till today, a lot of people do that. I mean, my son does that. He's like, all right, we're gonna go out in the woods. This is the first thing he's grabbing is his knife. Because the reality is that when we go out and we're surviving, we have to fulfill the survival priorities. That's something we talked about a bazillion times on this channel, and that is fire, water, shelter, and food. Fulfilling those priorities lets us stay alive. So how does a knife do that for us? So when we think about the survival priorities and we think about a knife, the knife can make all the items we need in order to fulfill those survival priorities. So let's break each one down. So we think about fire, okay? We have no way to make fire, but we have a knife. Well, if you have a skill set, and that's the big one, if you have a skill set to do this, you can take your knife, you can find the proper wood, you can carve yourself a friction fire kit, be it a hand drill, a bow drill, a pump drill. You can do that with your knife, and then you can create your fire. It takes time, and again, it takes a lot of skill, but we are fulfilling that survival priority because we have this and we have that skill set. Shelter is the same way. I need a shelter, it's starting to rain, the weather's getting bad. I can use my knife or my cutting tool to go out and cut saplings and cut branches and cut boughs from pine trees and create a shelter using this. So this gets me to the point that I can actually fulfill that survival priority of shelter. Food, same way. So I know somebody's gonna say, well, I'm gonna hunt with my knife. Okay, you hunt with your knife, let us know how that works out, but what you would mostly do if you were a really good survivalist is you can use this knife to create other weapons and tools and traps in order to secure food. So this is gonna help tremendously with that. And then the last one is water. Although a knife doesn't really help too much with that, it would help if you're thinking about disinfecting, again, creating that fire, then hence disinfecting your water. Or if you were gonna do something like a stone boil, because you had to disinfect the water, your knife's going to help you make the tongs you might need to lift those stones and stuff like that. So again, this item itself, important if you have the skill set and the time to do it. But the reality is it's not the best, because here's the thing, that all, we can all agree, if I had to do all that stuff right now, that's not going to happen in the next 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's probably going to take a few hours. And if you're in a desperate survival scenario and you're wet already and you're freezing and you're dehydrated and the storm's rolling in and it's starting to get dark, thinking you're going to do all that stuff is probably a really bad idea, compared to opening up your backpack, pulling out some type of shelter system that we can easily and quickly set up. Now, it doesn't have to be a fly like this T60 that we set up and actually sit under. It might just be rain gear, but we could pull it out and immediately have this shelter set up, compared to cutting and constructing and doing all that stuff. I can bring out a fire starting element that I just start the fire, depending on whatever kind of fire starter you love, you use that. So we already, in a very short time, fulfilled all that. Now I can get a puddle or gather rainwater in a metal container, stick this in the fire and boil it, and we are good to go, at least for a few days. And then if you throw some food in the mix, okay, you're even better off. You can even last longer, okay, without ever needing to grab one of these. So did Rambo really ruin the survival industry? Well, I don't think he ruined it. I think it was more just misleading to people who don't have experience in the outdoors, and that they feel as watching that movie they're going to quickly be able to just take this out and get the job done. Now, I'm not saying don't carry a knife along with you, because I tell students all the time, carry a knife with all that other stuff, because as you learn more skills, that knife can help you do more things. But having those base items is always going to trump being able to carry just this. So thanks for joining me for this video. I got to go out and hide in a mud puddle until somebody comes by, and then I can jump out and get them, and because there's enemy all over the area here. I think the Russians are here. So anyway, all right, go do that. Hit like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and until next video, stay in the woods.